And hello good people of the internet, it is I, Tommy Kelly, and this is Adventures in Woo Woo. Guess what? Just guess what? I'm in a forest again, back in Ravensdale. It's a glorious, wet, I was going to say wintry morning, but it's not cold enough, so I suppose autumn morning. And I'm under the canopy of a load of pine trees, and I can hear all the rain just dropping down on the leaves above. But I have found a sort of throne that I can sit in that is somewhat comfortable to do this video. So that's setting the scene. What do I want to talk about? Well, I actually want to talk about an experience I had last year, around about this time last year, although I'm not fully sure on the exact date, but sometime around this, that also involved forests. I didn't mention it before on a couple of the videos, but I just kind of skirted around it because I was in the middle of it. And now that a year has kind of gone past from this ritual, I think I have a bit more of a sense of what it's about, because I often find that when you're in the midst of a ritual or in the kind of circumference of the being after it, it's very hard to recognize what it's all about, which I've talked about before on the podcast with Spud about that whole thing of Helio. When we were talking about Helio, that there's this huge build up to nothing, and that I had kind of found that to be true about life as well, that there's kind of this momentum that carries you towards some sort of end goal that in the end doesn't seem to materialize. And I still hold to that I don't understand that fully, what the reasons for that. And I think the only reason I could come up with is that perhaps the ritual isn't for you, it's for, in the case of Helio, it's for Pan, and so the resolution is only for him and only kind of accessible or acknowledgeable or seen by him. Whereas from our perspective, it just looks like kind of, filtered out and went nowhere. But this one, anyway, does seem to have, or at least it's starting to come into clarity a bit. And it came out of a kind of conversation I had with Alan Chapman last week as well, so hats off to him. So it's this kind of thing that was happening where I was trying to get lost in the forest. And I had been spending an awful lot of time with Alan Chapman's Murgia teachings at the time, because it had, relatively speaking, had only really been released not that long ago before this started, and it was over a course of a couple of months where I was travelling all around trying to get lost in the forest. And I was doing obviously some videos, and I was doing some photography as well, so it was a kind of a dual purpose, but mostly was this kind of drive, I don't know, to reconnect with nature, or to kind of tease out or coax out some sort of earth-based grounding that I had just kind of been missing from my life, in that I had fallen for that trap of thinking the world was Maya or illusion, or bad optics, or the wrong perspective, or reality tunnel, the matrix, simulation, all that kind of stuff that's kind of fed into us, or force fed into us in new age occult magical thinking circles rather than thinking, so magical thinking. So there was some sort of impulse under it, and it was like taking, I suppose, in many ways when I was going to the forest, taking more risks each time because I was on my own, and I was going further and further into the depths of it and trying to find places that were more wild. I suppose trying to find Pan, or trying to find something. But anyway, the reason why I was saying that was the Murgia thing is because there's a whole kind of analogy within the Murgia teaching that is about the forest and going into the forest and stuff like that. So that was also playing on my mind as well. But that was the overall sense of I wanted to get lost. And I think as well that was trying to get away from life, or away from people, or away from society, just to get my own thoughts together. Because anyone who's been watching me for a while, one of my hardest things in the world is finding anywhere on this planet where there isn't other people. And I've often showed up in the middle of nowhere to do a video, or just to have a meditation or contemplation, and there will be people there, like just unlikely, extremely unlikely that people will be there. And I just found it very hard to find any place on the planet to be alone. And so I think that was another kind of thing on the reason wanting to get lost in the forest, that if I was lost, then therefore, you can't be found. But so there was one day, just after months, about 3 months of this kind of thing going nowhere, and sometimes I had a really kind of, I suppose, a negative reaction to the forest one day, where I got very pissed off and very angry for it not revealing itself, I suppose, or not giving me the kind of sense of illumination that I was looking for, even though I wasn't sure what it was. And I was, trying to go, like, show yourself. I'm asking, and you see, read in the Bible, or you come across this thing of seek and you shall find, and all this, or follow your bliss, and all the universe will open all the doors. I just felt that everything was closed. So one day I was out in a kind of I think it was man-made forest, but made a couple of 100 years ago. So I don't know if that makes any difference to it, but it's just something that's stuck in my mind. And the actual walk was kind of circling around the outskirts of it, but I went deep into it. And for some reason I had the idea that I was going to leave an offering this day anyway, and I had some incense, I had some, what else did I have? I had tinctures and stuff like this that I had kind of built up that seemed part of the working as well. But I also had the Stuart Wilde book, The Quickening, with me, a new version of it that I had bought for doing the study group about it on Patreon. I hadn't lost my original version that was given to me when I was a teenager, that kind of started me on the road to all this, which I'll come back to in a minute. So anyway, I got about an hour into it, and eventually I came across this tree, and I just knew this is the tree. This is the spirit of the forest, or this is the tree I was meant to come to. This is the whole thing. And it had a very peculiar light, and it was in a very dark area, but this tree itself was all lit up in a kind of a luminous, almost bloom sense. If you bloom in the kind of like 3D game sense, that kind of diffused lighting around it and stuff, very ethereal and stuff like that. But you see that sometimes in forests, but this was very distinct. I have a picture of it, but we'll see if I put it up or not. Sometimes these things can feel inappropriate to share, but we'll see how I feel when the video's put together. And so I said, right, well, here I am. Now what? Like, what are you going to reveal to me? What are you going to do? Or what is the grand end of this thing? And I felt I had to give a sacrifice. So I had an offering, but the same kind of thing. So I gave the incense, I gave the tinctures and whatever else I had with me, and it just was like, no, that's not what it is. And it was like, you have to leave the book here. And I was going, I don't want to leave the book here. I want this book. It felt, I really didn't want to give it away. And then it kind of came to me that, well, that's a proper sacrifice then, isn't it? It's easy to give sacrifices of incense or of, I don't know, of rum, or all of these incense, or all of these offerings that we give people, bread or whatever, give the spirits or the archetypes, whatever connection you have with them. But it's never actually a real something that I wish I kept for myself. You don't sacrifice. Well, I suppose in the old days, you had the Isaac and Abraham nonsense stuff. Well, what it represents isn't nonsense, but the actual full, face value of it. I suppose, when you sacrificed animals and stuff, and the kind of thing was that this is part of my livestock, my wealth, that I am sacrificing, giving them to God. So there seemed to be a proper sacrifice in that kind of way. Although that got very quickly out of hand, because you would literally go to the temple, buy your animal, to have it sacrificed by the priest. So it was became a commercial thing rather than an actual genuine sacrifice. But so then you're sacrificing your money, time. Off the point. What I'm saying is that when you sacrifice a candle or an incense, or give the offering of that, or water, or rum, whatever, it's not truly a sacrifice, in that you're not giving something away that you want to keep for yourself, that you actually feel is part of you. And it felt like giving the book away was part of me, and something I didn't want, so it felt like a proper sacrifice. And I put it at the base of the tree, and I could feel the longing or the yearning to want to keep it. And it's only a book, I only had it a week though, but I had finished the study group, so my kind of current use for it I think I'd finished the study group, the last video, that day. So there was a completion in that as well. And so I left there and walked away, and walked back out to the forest, and took another hour or whatever to come out. And I kind of was thinking about it then the next couple of days, and then I was like, what was that? Nothing appeared, there was no insight, there was no revelation, nothing had changed. And I kind of found, well, there you go, there's another one of those huge feelings of momentum and push and drive, and as if you're going somewhere that just kind of seemed futile in the end, or I felt that it went nowhere, fizzled out, or hard to describe, just kind of, or the kind of impression I kind of get from it was that, I've missed something, I've missed my chance, missed my opportunity, I didn't grab whatever it was that I needed to do, I made a mistake, that kind of stuff. Which, now that I said, it was interesting for a different reason that I may or may not come back to. So it's kind of left me kind of burnt out, kind of that the usual thing of disillusion. Because what's the point of all that? That's, you know, this seemed like it was going somewhere and wasn't. And then I just left it. I stopped going to forest for a while, weather-wise as well. And then I suppose then a couple of months later we went into lockdown and I wasn't able to and stuff like that. So it was coming towards the end of all that anyway. But I was talking to Alan Chapman last week, and he was talking about when he first found, he was whatever he was, 15 or 16, and he found Magic and Theory in Practice by Aleister Crowley, and how he didn't understand it, but that he knew that was him, or that was part of what he was to do, or you know, that was for him, that was who he was in a sense, you know, that he had found himself in this book, but as yet couldn't understand it, and still had kind of embarrassment around it, because, you know, you're meant to be grown up at 15, 16, and there you're going in buying a satanic magic book, and which, you know, it's a foolish endeavour. Also pointing out, of course, that the first tarot card or the first thing is the Fool. And I was kind of thinking, he said to me, you must have had that kind of feeling in your life as well. And I goes, well, I did. It was when I got the Stuart Wilde book, The Quickening, from my aunt when I was about 13 or 14, and I recognised myself in it, even though I didn't fully subscribe to all of what Stuart said. I kind of had that sense of coming home, or finding myself in it and go, this is me, this is my thing, or this is, you know, this is where my path starts, or whatever. And so I was telling him about the whole thing then, that I ended up giving it away at the tree. He says, it's not funny, isn't it? You know, and he kind of laughed as he does and goes, so you had found the thing that you thought was you, and then you give it away. And I kind of didn't get it at the time. I heard this and whatever, but it kind of resonated with me more after. I goes, well, that's very, very interesting. Symbolically, that's what happened. But I was thinking after then, what then proceeded after that was that I was given back the very original book that I had when I was a kid. It turned out my sister had it, and she had a few of my other Stuart Wilde books, but I got back the very original, battered, coffee cup stained, the covers missing, version of the book. Not long after, I'm hazy with times all the time with these things, but not months after, weeks after, possibly 2 weeks after. And so there was this kind of, when I look back now, it's like, that whole kind of thing of you have to, you know, give away to receive what you originally had. You know, the alchemist thing of, without spoiling the alchemist, so that you have to go the whole other side of the world to find that the thing you wanted was where you started. And so that is kind of a revelation that's kind of come to me, that the thing where I found myself originally, I kind of had to get lost in the forest to give away the thing that I had turned that into, and to sacrifice that to then it to be returned to the original intention, or the original form of what it was. And that's where I am, and that's where I'm sitting with it. And so I find it very interesting and very enlightening that kind of happened unbeknownst to me until I did. And you know, I bang on about Alan Chapman all the time, but I find him immensely useful. His kind of idea of just describe. You're not interpreting things, you're not doing, just what was it that happened. I give away the book in a new version of the book that I had once found myself in, only to be then given the original version back because of this getting lost in the forest. And so that's interesting. And I don't think it's a call to go back and think the way I was about, you know, believe everything that's in that book, or follow, you know, change my life to be everything that's in the Quickening or whatever. But it's the kind of a call to remember who you are originally, or where you came from, your journey back home. And all of these themes do come up in the Magia stuff that I'm, again, back into in a big way. So I just wanted to share that, and again, there's no real probably resolution to it as yet. There's no kind of massive insight, or there's no wow moment or anything, but it's a very interesting thing that when you look at just the essence of what actually happened, you then, I suppose, the symbology of it is revealed, rather than just thinking I made a sacrifice to a tree in a forest and nothing happened. But of course things did happen. And so I have to sit with that for a while and see where it goes. I'm sure there's other instances in my life where similar things have happened that I've missed because not looking just to see, to use Magia terms, because I was looking to confirm something that I already wanted, or, you know, coming to the forest to meet Pan because that's what I had wanted, rather than coming to the forest to meet the forest, or to do whatever magically, like to see what's there rather than trying to conform it to what I want it to be or what I hope it to be, need it to be, or whatever. And there's a big lesson in that, at least for me. I assume, being that I am not any different from you, there's a lesson in that for all of us. So, good people of the internet, from the canopy of pine trees in this ever-increasing wet forest, I will leave you for another week. May your revelations be revelatory, and may we understand them and know where they're going, and feel that when the momentum is calling us, just trust in the process a bit more, even if it's not immediately obvious what's going on, that just let it percolate and sit in your consciousness until we do find out what it is. And of course, may our best days be ahead, and be very well.